So I would like to introduce our presenters for the Brain Health Workshop. We have 4 presenters who are all senior nursing students at the University of Vermont. And this brain health presentation is part of their public health clinical. And I would like to introduce them individually. So we have Sydney, who is originally from Vermont and is interested in working in oncology. We have Ella, who is from Rochester, New York, and loves going on hikes and swimming in Lake Champlain. And we have Bella from New Jersey, who loves working with mobility challenged population and helping people get active, again, outside. And we have Eliza, who is originally from Massachusetts and loves cats and coffee. So I am going to turn the program over to them, and they will share with us all about brain health.
Okay, I'm Sydney, so I'm going to start off our presentation. Again, this is our second presentation as part of our public health clinical, and today we're going to talk about brain health. So before we start our presentation, we want to give a brief disclaimer about the information we will be sharing. Information is provided by University of Vermont nursing students. It's informational only, and it is not to be construed as medical advice. For any health-related issues experienced now or in the future, please consult your medical health providers and do not rely only on this information to make changes to any medical care. Participation in this program is completely voluntary, and you okay. Next, this is our team again. We're all from University of Vermont, all senior nursing students. And then, okay, I want everyone to take a minute or so to look at the images on the slide. Don't write it down, don't take a picture, but try to remember it because it's going to come back later. So I'll give a couple of seconds or so to take a long look at what's on the slide and where the pictures are located. Okay, I'm going to move on now. So here's our little table of contents for this workshop. We went over our introductions. Next, we'll move into survey findings from a survey sent out prior to this workshop. Then we'll talk about what brain health is, what affects the health of our brains, and what we can do about it. Then we will discuss the benefits of the outdoors, because this is a workshop with the Come Out Live Outside program. We'll also talk about nutrition and brain health. And in the end, we'll do a mindfulness activity together and finish off with a summary of covered points and do a little Q&A for everyone who has questions. So first, our survey results. So for what do you know about brain health? Half of respondents said that they think they know a little, which is a good place for us to start. For how would you rate your mental health? All of those who responded said average or better, with most saying somewhat good or good. And everyone's rating of memory is a little bit more varied than the other questions. Respondents said poor, average, or good at best, which is a pretty understandable mix. Next, for those who responded to the survey, so that they keep their brains healthy through mental stimulation, exercise, and by avoiding tobacco. Changes recently noticed by participants. Is anyone else hearing an echo? Are we good?
I think it's
okay. Changes recently noticed by participants were increasing mental fogginess and forgetting recent conversations. And lastly, for family history, common responses were a family history of Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and high cholesterol. So that gives us kind of an idea of where we're starting our presentation, what we know, and what we're thinking about for ourselves. So now that we have an idea about where we're all at, let's talk about it. So the definition of brain health encompasses neural development, plasticity, functioning, and recovery. But what do these all mean? So neural development is the continuous process by which our brains learn, remember, and work. So development means that it changes and grows with new information and experiences. And plasticity is how that learning is kind of at work. So plasticity describes the character of our brains. They're squishy, they're moldable, they can be changed. They're sponges for information, and they're easily shaped by experiences. So because of this plasticity, our brains are able to do that growing and changing with new information and with different experiences throughout our life. So we learn something, our brain changes, something happens to us, the way our brains work is reflected by that experience. And then functioning is how our brains apply both that development and the change to our ability to reason, our memory, our skills, and just our general intelligence. So our brain's general ability to regulate our bodies and our minds. And then lastly, recovery, that's our brain's ability to regain functions lost after brain injury, trauma, or other harm to our brain. Our brains are able to rework and remap certain areas of our brain to take over damaged areas so they continue to do their work. Not all function is lost. Sometimes our brains really can make up for it to the point where you might not even be able to tell anything has happened, which is very good because our brains work hard. So next, what is good brain health and how is that defined? So good brain health is a state in which every individual can realize their own abilities and optimize their cognitive, emotional, psychological, and behavioral functioning to cope with life situations. This can be affected by different things, but most importantly, the social and biological determinants. So that's genetics, our families and those around us, our upbringing, and things we've learned and things that have happened to us over the course of our lives. That really sets the stage for our brain, how our development is going to go. But that does not mean that all of it is predetermined. There are things you can change. There are things you can do to prevent poor brain health and things to promote good brain health. So even if things have happened to you, that doesn't mean it is permanent. You can always improve and do better. So next, I'm going to hand it off to Bella.
Hi, everyone. So here's a slide we have just kind of showing a small gist of different topics that we're going to be going over later in the slideshow. However, these are what are described as the 6 pillars of brain health. So in other words, these are some of the most important factors to creating a healthy environment for your mind. The first one we have here is physical exercise. So any kind of activity that you can get or movement daily. It doesn't have to be anything like running a marathon, but it improves blood flow to your brain. It decreases risk of Alzheimer's disease, and it is found to help with strengthening your memory. Another category is medical health. So this means adhering to medications and treatments for any other illnesses you have is vitally important, not only for the rest of your body, but also for your brain and your mental health. Social interaction is another category within the 6 pillars. Having a good social life with people who you feel supported by and who you have a positive relationship with can actually fend off memory loss, which I found to be a really interesting fact, but it has been shown through many research studies. Food and nutrition is another topic we're going to be getting into a little bit later in the presentation as well. But eating antioxidant-rich foods such as berries, leafy greens, and also other categories of food, which we're going to discuss a little bit later, can help reduce brain cell damage. And again, it just helps keep your body in a better physical state, tying into the medical health category. Sleep and relaxation, if you were at our first presentation on sleep and good sleep hygiene, you probably know this a little bit already, but sleep and relaxation is so vital to so many parts of our health, including reducing stress, improving our immunity, and even slowing in the deterioration of our brains as we age. So try to get some good quality sleep whenever you can. It is very important. And sleep is definitely not for the weak. So the last category we have here is mental fitness, which we're going to talk about in the next slide as well, but it promotes brain cell growth and improves your brain's function. So mental fitness is any activities that you practice that will challenge your brain and stimulate your brain throughout the day. And this is shown to reduce cognitive decline, which often comes as we age and put years onto our lives. So these activities don't have to be super, super challenging, and they don't have to be things you don't like. There are so many ways to challenge and stimulate your brain that can really help keep your brain functioning to its highest abilities. So we have here just a few examples, and this can of course be individualized, but if you enjoy reading a little bit every day is a great way to stimulate your brain. We're doing puzzles, card games. I know a lot of people in my life recently have been really into crocheting. That's another great activity where you're kind of counting and focusing on one thing at a time. There's so many different activities you can do to stimulate your brain and add to that term of mental fitness. Here's a picture of something called the Brain Health Index, which is really just defining some different terms which help us develop resilience and fortitude and clarity, all factors that people look for as good qualities within their life anyway, but are also found to be really helpful to keeping your brain healthy. So clarity is that readiness to reason through and process complex or even difficult situations, which means that really whatever point you're in your life, whether it's a good time or maybe a more challenging circumstance, finding optimism throughout that time period and creating periods of rest for yourself can really help you find that clarity that you need to function well. Fortitude is the ability to remain emotionally balanced while in adverse situations. So this could mean trying to really take a look at your thought process and walk yourself through maybe how your cognition is working in order to try and remain objective when sometimes it's hard to in situations which might be emotionally charged. Resilience is also the capacity to connect with social supports that you may have in your life and find purpose throughout your daily life. No matter when things get difficult, it's always important to remember what our goals are and what ultimately we're striving for throughout our life. And that'll help us get through those more challenging times stronger on the other side. So now I'm going to turn it over to Eliza.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to be talking today about different factors that can impact your brain health. Okay, so there are many factors that can impact your brain health in both negative and positive ways. The first one I'll be talking about is stress. So research has shown time and time again that high levels of stress are correlated with lower levels of cognitive abilities, especially in older adults. In fact, it's shown that constant negative thoughts may even activate genes in your brain that cause your brain to age more quickly. Now, a little bit of stress in your life is very normal, and it's actually a good thing because it can help you motivate to do things in your life. It becomes a problem when you are stressed all the time, every day, and that's when you really need to address it because it could potentially damage your brain over time. The next factor is your diet. Like we said before, we'll get more into diet later on in the presentation, but basically your brain is an organ, and just like any other organ in your body, it needs a steady supply of nutrients to keep it nice and healthy. Healthy habits are more important in general than any specific diet, but for the most part, you'll want to eat plenty of lean proteins, fresh produce, and omega-3 fatty acids. Those are what keep your brain really nice and healthy and functioning. The next factor we'll talk about is sleep. As we've mentioned before in our sleep presentation, and like Bella said, when you sleep, you take in the information that you learned throughout the day. When you're sleeping, basically, you are storing that information, you're taking those memories and you are processing them in your sleep. And so that's why it's really important to get a good amount of sleep, especially for older adults. Not getting enough sleep can lead to faster cognitive decline. Sleep is super important for that neural development and plasticity that we were talking about before. It's really a good time for your mind to regenerate. The next factor is activity level. It's been shown that a sedentary lifestyle has been associated with more than a twofold increase in the risk of dementia, while just a half an hour or a light hour of exercise per day can keep both your mind and your body healthy. It's not about going to the gym and having a vigorous workout. It's more just about getting outside, stimulating your mind, just, keeping it nice and healthy and strong. The next factor is social activity. Like we mentioned before, spending time with family, making new friends, that can really help you retain your cognitive abilities. It's very stimulating to have a conversation with someone. And you can even combine socialization with something really good for your body, like exercise, taking a walk with a friend, something like that. Next one would be intellectual stimulation. And your brain basically just needs a good constant stimulation to stay strong. Your brain has basically a reserve that helps it adapt and respond to change and resist damage. As you learn new things, perform new activities, and pursue new interests, you improve that brain reserve, and it makes your brain more resilient to any damage that could come its way. So just keeping your brain nice and strong is super important, especially as you get older. Smoking is another factor to talk about. Smoking definitely increases your risk of cognitive decline. However, once you quit smoking, you reduce your risk a lot. In fact, after about 10 years of not smoking, your rate of cognitive decline will be comparable to people who've never smoked. So it's not an irreversible thing. If you're thinking of quitting smoking, I would definitely talk to someone about it, talk to your doctor, because it will help your cognitive ability as you get older, definitely. Another one to consider is alcohol and other drugs. We already know the short-term effects that alcohol can have. It can impair your memory, your judgment, your coordination, your sleep patterns. However, when used long-term, it can actually cause some permanent brain damage. Other drugs, for example, like cocaine, actually can make the brain age unnaturally fast, because basically what happens in your brain is that you lose gray matter, which is it's a tissue in your brain that has a lot of good brain cells in it. This gray matter volume can be decreased a lot by drugs, and it can increase that aging process of memory problems, declining cognitive abilities. So really trying to stay away from those substances is the best for your brain. And then seeking out the help if you do need help, because it's not easy. Addiction is a real, it's a disease. So seeking out help for that would be very beneficial. Another factor is heart health. Your heart is very much connected to your brain. A new study from the American College of Cardiology shows that people who have a higher risk of heart disease have increased risk markers for Alzheimer's disease and stroke. Obviously, Alzheimer's disease usually is a more degenerative over time, progressive disease, and stroke is much more acute. The symptoms happen very quickly, but both of them are very damaging to your brain, and you want to prevent that as much as possible by having a good heart healthy lifestyle. And the last one would be mental health. Not really talked about a lot with brain health, because we think more about that physical side of it, but mental health is very important to think about, because research has linked depression with an increased risk for dementia. There's growing evidence that several parts of your brain shrink when you have depression over a long period of time. Specifically, that tissue I was talking about before, that gray matter volume, that can significantly decrease, and that tissue has a lot of good brain cells and neurons, and you want to make sure that you're not shrinking that tissue as much as possible. So seeking out help for your mental health is very important. And so next, we're going to be talking about what can we do to improve our brain health. We just talked about all those different factors that can negatively impact it. Now we're going to talk about, well, what can we do about that? All right, so we have some tips and tricks for daily life. The first one we'll talk about is creating a good sleep routine. This is just a few short bullets. There's so much more you could do to get a good sleep, but the most important ones I would say would be to try to get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. It can vary depending on the person, how much you really need to make yourself feel good throughout the day, but 7 to 9 is generally the good amount for adults. You want to try to go to bed around the same time every night, which is easier said than done, but it really helps your body adjust to a good sleep schedule when you're trying to get to bed the same time. And also avoiding looking at electronics at least 30 minutes before bedtime. A lot of electronics emit something called blue light, and that blue light can trick your brain into staying awake longer. So it helps you get better sleep if you just take the last 30 minutes before bedtime to let your brain kind of rest and shut down. Next would be exercising regularly. And like I mentioned before, 30 to 60 minutes of activity per day is great. However, if that's not possible for you, just start with whatever you can. If it's 10 minutes, if it's just taking a walk outside, a leisurely walk around your neighborhood, that's amazing. Following along to a yoga video in your living room, that's great too. It's really whatever you can do and are capable of just to get your body and your mind moving. That's really important. And you can slowly build that up over time as well. The next one is following a Mediterranean diet, which we'll get more into later, but it's basically a diet high in omega fatty acids and other healthy fats. It's a diet involving a lot of plant-based foods, whole grains, fish, healthy fats, things that you would generally think of as being healthy for yourself. Also trying to incorporate less red meat into your diet and less salt into your diet is always a good thing. And we'll touch more later on this whole diet thing, but those are just a few things you can try to eat. Okay, so more tips and tricks would be to stay mentally active. We had a long list before of things you can do, but things like jigsaw puzzles, card games with friends, even just having a stimulating conversation with another person is great. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to think about it, you can just do things that you'd normally do in your life that are entertaining, but at the same time, you're working out your brain. It can be fun. And also checking in with your mental well-being, as I was saying before, very important. Seeking out resources like therapy if you think they could benefit you. talking to your doctor about your mental health concerns, or even just taking that first step and talking to friends and family is very important because, you know, they're the people who are there to support you most. And if you're having an issue, definitely reach out and talk to someone about it because it can be really, really beneficial in the long term. And I'm going to hand off our mindfulness activity next to Bella.
Hi again. Okay. So the next activity we have, I'm excited to share with everyone. Before we do the exercise, I just wanted to go over here some of the benefits of doing something like the practice we're about to do. So the kind of exercise we're about to do, it helps people become more aware of their cognition and be present with their thoughts. It challenges the brain to focus on one thing at a time, stimulating the brain and your mind. It can improve and maintain good mental health and increase our positivity throughout the day and improve our productivity. So all really good effects here. So what kind of activity has the ability to improve so many different aspects of our mind and our brain's well-being? It's very simple. What I'm just challenging everyone in here to do right now, usually this is a nice activity for the start of the day, but we can do it now that it's 4:25. Our Australian friends here will have this as a nice little morning practice. But what I'm just going to ask everyone to do is take a few minutes to think about 3 goals that they have for their day and 3 things that you are grateful for. And I'll give everyone just a few minutes here. You can write it in the chat if you feel comfortable or just think about it in your head. Yeah. Anyone want to share right off the bat? All right, well, so the things that I'm thinking of for my own were getting more movement, drinking more water, and taking time to spend with my friends around me as my 3 goals for the day. And things I was grateful for were the sun is shining today, which is kind of rare in Vermont winters. I'm able to exercise to the fullest capability that I want to, and my body's in good condition. I'm thankful for my strength, and I'm thankful to be surrounded by people who are supportive and kind. Okay, we have one from Glenda. Help others stay healthy, exercise, eat well. Oh, great. Oh, we have a few here. Yeah, I mean, these are all great examples of some things we can have as goals and be thankful for. Oh yeah, look at everyone. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot about good health, family, good support systems. Yeah, right. That drink more water one, I think, is everyone could always use a little bit more water in their lives. So yeah, these are all great goals, and I'm happy to see that people have a good understanding of kind of what they want to work on and what they're happy with. And as I said before, this is just a nice exercise to be able to, it is a way of challenging ourselves a little bit, and it just helps keep us in a more resilient mindset and thinking of, as I kind of explained in the brain health index, it's just a way of, no matter what kind of circumstances we're in now, it just keeps us nice and present and helps us push through and keep goals in mind for what we want for ourselves now and in the future. So we can move to the next slide. Okay, so the next slide I have here is another little practice. We're not going to do it right now, but we're all in different places in our lives. I'm sure many of the people in this chat have a lot of busyness in their lives. Maybe not everyone has the time to do, yoga for an hour a day, or maybe do all the things they want to do to make themselves feel as refreshed as they maybe have as a goal. So what I have here is, just as it says, a workday refresh. So for people working long hours or who have a lot of chronic or frequent stressors in their life, this is just a nice way to be able to stay present and reduce stress and get some of these pillars of brain health in throughout the day. So taking small frequent breaks throughout the day is a really nice way to be able to kind of stay focused and reduce that stress. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go tell your boss, oh, I'm taking a 15-minute break every hour, right? Because maybe that's not possible for everyone, or wouldn't be looked at great. But even if that means just getting up and excusing yourself to say, oh, you know what, I have to go use the restroom, or taking a lap around the hallway in your office space, that's just a nice way to get in some movement and remove yourself from whatever's causing you that stress, even just for a few minutes before going back to it. And it's something to look forward to when you feel that tension building up throughout the day, to take those small breaks. Another one, if you're able to, listen to calming music. I'm sure for people working at home, that could be a nice strategy, maybe something instrumental or some classic music, whatever floats your boat really for that one. But that's just a nice way also to keep something more calming in the background of what could be a stressful situation. Take walks and be active when you can. So this week, it's kind of circling back to the first point here about taking little small breaks throughout the day. And those breaks, again, they don't have to be movement based. They could just be taking a few deep breaths. But taking walks and being active when you can would be a really nice way to, again, get some movement in, decrease your stress, etc. And so the last point we have is eating foods that fuel your brain, which as we've talked about nutrition quite a bit, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more because yes, it is that important. But yeah, eating foods that fuel your brain, like fruits and berries, or as Eliza said, foods with omega-3s in it, like fish. Those kinds of things can help keep you nourished throughout the day, especially if you're someone who gets a little bit hangry from time to time. It's a nice way to just reduce stress, keep yourself as nourished and energized as you can. And then I'm going to be turning it over to Ella now.
Thank you, Bella. So now we're going to talk about the outdoors. So we can move on. So exposure to nature has actually been linked with a number of health benefits. And when we say exposure to nature, we're not necessarily talking about taking a hike up a mountain. Even taking a walk in the park or a few minutes spent out in the fresh air and sun can have drastic benefits for your health and well-being. So time spent outside can improve your attention span, relieve stress, improve mood, increase energy levels, improve sleep quality, and improve memory. It can also help increase creativity. If you go on to the next slide here. There you go, increase creativity and makes you a more generous person, improves self-awareness, and reduces negative emotions. It also makes you feel more alive. And so you might be asking, how much time do we need to spend outside? And researchers have shown that spending at least 2 hours a week of recreational outdoor time can significantly improve your health and well-being. And this recreational time, like I said, can be anything from a hike, a stroll through the park, or even just sitting outside in the sun. And these 2 hours do not have to happen all at one time. The health benefits are the same whether you spend those 2 hours consecutively in nature at one time or spread it out over the course of the week. So no matter how this works for you, even trying to spend 20 minutes outside a day can have great effects on your health. So we're going to move on. Like Bella said, nutrition is that important. So what does good nutrition look like? The pillars of a healthy diet consist of the right proportions of a number of nutrients, including carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, and water. And it's important to get all of these nutrients in. And it's very important to eat whole, real foods. This includes fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and legumes. And additionally, a diet low in refined sugars is greatly beneficial to your brain health. So as Eliza mentioned earlier, the Mediterranean diet is a great example of a healthy diet that can result in a number of health benefits. So this diet typically consists of fish, fruits, vegetables, and unsaturated fats, and is low in dairy and red meat. Research has shown that following this diet. Oh, I hear echo. Thank you. So research has shown that following this diet improves cognition, memory, and brain volume, as well as reduces the protein buildup in your brain that's associated with memory loss and dementia. So let's talk about why good nutrition is important. Prioritizing good nutrition has a number of health benefits. Eating fruits and vegetables can improve memory and boost your alertness. Carbohydrates and certain minerals supply us with the energy we need to stay alert. And a heart-healthy diet can reduce the risk of stroke. Following a healthy diet can also boost your immune system, which can help keep your entire body and your brain healthy. A healthy diet also helps to manage the microbiome that lives in your gut. Usually when we think about brain health, we're not thinking about your gut, but they're actually very connected. There are hundreds of cells that live in your GI tract that help you digest foods, and they also have an effect on your mental health. So having a healthy gut biome is associated with increased serotonin levels, which is the mood stabilizer chemical in your brain. So a healthy gut equals a happy mind. And some foods that can lead to a healthy gut are fermented foods and probiotics, such as kimchi, which is a type of fermented food, or even yogurt, which is a probiotic. And a healthy gut will also help to reduce the oxidative stress and inflammation throughout your body, which, if left unchecked, can lead to impaired brain function. And on the other hand, poor nutrition can lead to high blood pressure and cholesterol, which can lead to a number of health issues for both your heart and your mind. And it may even lead to shrinkage and nerve death in the brain, as well as worsening moods and increased stress levels. So I'm going to turn it over here back to Bella.
Okay, it's a lot of information. I hope everyone is able to soak a lot of that up. But if you remember at the beginning of our presentation, we did have just a little game. If you can't remember things, don't worry. It doesn't mean that your memory is done for. But it was just a nice little exercise again to just practice giving ourselves a little challenging activity to boost our brains for the day. So if anyone wants to share in the chat, maybe, what symbols and images do you remember from the beginning of the presentation on that slide that we shared before we started? Oh, awesome. Okay, it looks like a lot of people are remembering various of the pictures we put up. That's really impressive because we just had a lot of slides, and wow, I'm impressed. Yeah, same here, Angela. Yeah, wow. Well, great, everyone. I'm glad that a lot of you seem to have done really well with that little memory activity we had there. Yeah, and just small little games like that even, or can just be a fun way to, again, just boost our concentration, our stimulation for a little bit. So yeah, good to see that a lot of people here were successful with that. Okay, well, we can move on to the next slide. So now we just have a summary to wrap up our presentation. Just a few of the points that we went through in this presentation. Our brains grow and develop throughout our lives, and it's based on so many factors, biological and social. So our experiences throughout our life, the information that we learn, and the work we put towards learning and building up that mental fitness as we continue to age, they all play part in our development and our brain's health. Good brain health involves stimulating and challenging our brains to gain new abilities, which results in optimized function of cognitive and emotional, psychological, behavioral sectors of our mind. So really, it's just an all-encompassing way to improve our health status. Again, many social and environmental factors contribute to how our minds develop, from the foods we eat to the drinks we drink and the people that we surround ourselves with. So regular exercise, social interaction, adequate sleep, nutrition, medical health, mental fitness, these are all factors, in addition to genetics or the more uncontrollable factors that we can change and we can take control of to increase our brain health and help reduce our risk for memory loss. Stress, smoking, heart disease, poor mental health, and many other factors also increase risk for memory loss and reduce brain function. So, well, again, we can't control everything that we're at risk for that maybe we have going on in our lives. Trying to really reduce these factors, such as maybe smoking or drinking, and if possible, getting help or reaching out for support for mental health. These are all factors that can really help you and help to reduce these factors that we listed here.
Okay, so now time for your questions. I see that many people have asked some great questions in the chat, so we're gonna start going through those. And before we start with that, I just sent one thing in the chat, which is just a little handout with some brief information that we included in the presentation. So you should be able to download that onto your computer. If not, it will also be included in the email out to you that has this presentation and a link to a brief survey. So let's get started with the first question from Angela. Is there a difference between brain health and mental health? Any group member want to answer that?
I can take
If
this
not,
one. Yeah, so mental health and brain health, they are different. It's of course important to say that they are tied together. They have strong associations with each other, as we talked a little bit about in our presentation. But brain health, when we talk about that, we're talking about those factors that Sydney mentioned in the beginning, such as your plasticity, your brain's ability to bounce back, the resilience of your brain to remember things and resist that memory loss that many people face as our brains age. So mental health is, of course, another very broad and complex topic. But in general, maintaining the best mental health that we have, that we can, is going to help improve and maintain good brain health.
awesome. Thank you, Bella. And just a quick answer your question, Joan. Are there notes available? Yes, like I said, we'll get some of these resources emailed out to the participants. So I'm going to move on to the next question from David. Asking about smoking. Does this include vaping too?
I can take this one. During the presentation, I saw the question, so I did a little bit of research on it because I don't know a ton about the difference, smoking and vaping, but it does say that basically the nicotine in the vape device is the thing that is most damaging to your brain. Nicotine changes the way that your synapses are formed, which can harm the parts of the brain that control attention and learning. So that neural development we were talking about, the synapses, when they're connecting and forming, new pathways for memory and stuff, that is damaged by nicotine. So if you're smoking or vaping, that nicotine that you're ingesting is not great for your brain. So I would say it is probably equally as harmful.
Awesome. Thank you, Eliza. So moving on to the next question. Can you explain why personality changes can occur when stressed from a viewpoint of stress's impact on brain health?
So I also looked that one up as we were going because I wasn't sure. And it does say that stress shrinks the brain a little bit. Stress can lead to shrinkages in area of the brain associated with emotions, metabolism, memory, that gray matter we were talking about, that really important tissue in your brain that has a lot of good cells, that is affected by stress. So the chronic stress that you're experiencing, the more you have of it, that can impact that gray matter volume, kind of like the same way depression does. it shrinks that volume. So you want to try to reduce the amount of stress that you're experiencing in your life for sure.
Great, thank you, Eliza. All right, reading through a lot of great goals for the day. And let's see.
Before you read the next question, I saw that Audrey here talked about brain and water. Just a quick comment on that. Yeah, it's correct that the brain is vastly made up of water, just as the rest of our body is made of 70% or more, depending on how hydrated we are, of water. So yeah, being dehydrated can contribute to a lot of different factors, which on a more acute level, or I guess day-to-day level, can impact our brain health. So being dehydrated can make us kind of go throughout the day with a kind of foggy state of mind, where we're not really as focused or energized as we would be if we were drinking adequate amounts of water. And yeah, so that was a good point. And again, just emphasizing that drinking more is always a good way to help improve your brain health on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Bella. Very important stuff. So I'm going to move on to our next question here from Karen. How do medications like Xanax affect our brain and memory?
I can speak on that one a little bit. So using Xanax as prescribed by your doctor is generally safe. Issues with memory, like loss as a result of using Xanax, often rarely occurs as prescribed, and often only occurs if it's being abused or used like incorrectly, because that can damage your brain cells and lead to like coordination issues and balance. And I don't know a lot about this, but I do know that Xanax use can cause like brain zaps. So if you are experiencing those, like a tingly feeling in your brain, that is a time you talk to your doctor about it, because that isn't usually supposed to be happening and they might need to adjust your dose. But in general, Xanax use should not cause memory issues. If it does, that's a side effect, and ask your doctor too. We are not experts.
Awesome. And moving on here to the next question from Audrey. Are these pointers also applicable to post-COVID patients for recovery? And I can speak on this one for a little bit. That's a really great question. The pointers we have in here are pretty general things for, I would say, the daily public. So I can't necessarily speak to how helpful these may be to someone who is recovering from COVID, but what I can say is all of these things can make some pretty good changes and benefits to your health. So it's nothing in here would be necessarily harmful or dangerous to do unless told otherwise by your medical provider. So anything that we've said in here could definitely be helpful for something, but it is hard to say, especially with some of the unclear information with COVID, is how much this might make a difference in that. So unfortunately, that's all the answer I have for you, Audrey. And moving on here, thank you. Carol gave a few examples of books about Alzheimer's disease by Dale Bredesen. Those might be some good reads for people. And another question from Angela here. If a person says they can't change negative behaviors to improve brain health, what would be a good response?
I can try this one out. I would say that sometimes it's hard to, when you tell people things that they know already would negatively affect their health, like smoking or whatever, it's hard to just tell a person like, this is what it's going to do to you, this is what it's going to do to you, and then expect them to listen. I would say try to meet the person where they're at. It's hard to change habits. And so I think kind of having some empathy about that and trying to understand why that person has those negative behaviors, maybe asking them like, oh, like, you do this and this, like, why, what is preventing you from changing those behaviors? Kind of trying to understand more their thinking process instead of, trying to convince them out of it. I think they have to kind of come to that conclusion themselves, maybe. So, just, I guess, present people with the facts. If you're really concerned, if it's like a big issue, like maybe they are addicted to something, seeking out help, outside help, because it's a bigger thing than you are able to take on. It really depends on the situation. But I would say just listening and being empathetic and talking about it would be the way to start.
Thank you, Eliza. I just want to add on too. I think everything that you just said was great. But another thing that might be helpful if you see someone who you see might need to make some changes is do that alongside with them. If you see someone who maybe needs to get some more exercise, maybe offer to go on walks with them or things like that. That can be a great motivator. And so like that might make a real change if you see someone who needs to improve some of those negative behaviors, like you said. All right, so next question we have here are nootropic supplements effective in maintaining and improving brain health?
I can take this one. So this is it's a good question because nootropic supplements are kind of increasing in popularity. There are many different types of nootropic medications. We're talking about ranging from like creatinine to caffeine to ginkgo biloba, which is another kind of supplement. So with any kind of supplement, it's always a good idea to talk to your provider first, because a lot of them will have their fair share of things that are beneficial, but also with almost any supplement or medication, there are going to be drawbacks as well. So depending on your own health status and your individual needs, it is important to discuss that with people on an individual level. In general, some of the nootropics that I've heard of, like omega-3s, are, as we kind of talked about in the presentation, are a great way to help improve your brain's health. A lot of the times, though, you can get adequate amounts of omega-3s through diet, in things such as like hemp heart seeds or in fishes. So again, it's kind of up to your own needs and where you're lacking individually, but always talk to a healthcare provider before starting a supplement of any kind, just to kind of confirm that that is the best option for you before going on. But many nootropics that are prescribed have actually been found to be helpful to brain functioning, again, which are individualized to the person and their needs.
Great. And that looks like the last question in the chat. I see Karen here dropped a link if anyone wants a little more information about nutrients for brain health and performance. So thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions coming up from the group? Drop them in the chat now.
I saw one from earlier that I'm not sure we touched on about apple cider vinegar, if it's good for your gut or not. And I did look that up, and it says that raw apple cider vinegar contains like natural probiotics, which are good for your immune system and your gut health. So yeah, I would say apple cider vinegar is good. So definitely consider that.
I will say for apple cider vinegar, though, just as a warning from experience, always make sure if you're taking apple cider vinegar, it's in small amounts, especially if you're doing it instead of in gummy form. If you're taking actual vinegar, always mix it with water, because it can be really damaging actually to your GI tract because of how acidic it is, and to your teeth enamel. So if you are going to go forward with taking apple cider vinegar, please make sure you're doing it in a way that's safe for the more sensitive parts of your body as well.
Awesome. Thank you, both of you. I must have missed that question in the midst of the comments here. And it looks like we have another question came in. Does moderate use of THC or CBD affect the brain?
Yes. So CBD and THC, they're different kind of strains of marijuana, so they are going to have different effects. But in general, there have been studies that shown, so CBD has been shown in many studies to actually have beneficial effects in terms of like pain and sleep, and for many people. However, at the same time, in terms of overall brain health, it is always important to kind of do have research in hand, because or talk to, again, I mean, not that people necessarily want to talk to providers all the time about THC, but at the same time, it's a non-judgmental, it's a safe space to talk about things that you might be questioning for your health. So, if you are asking the question, feel free to do it. Because it's an open and safe space to be able to talk about these kinds of products and how they could possibly affect you. THC and CBD, while CBD has been shown to have positive effects on certain types of pain relief and also sleep for some people, they have both been shown, just marijuana in general has been shown that you have increased risk factors for several mental health illnesses if you are a regular user of marijuana, including different kinds of psychosis and depression and anxiety as well. So always keep that in mind with these kinds of products, that they do put you at higher risk for certain effects such as that as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'll just add to that, I think it really also depends specifically on the person. Like your doctor may even prescribe you some medical marijuana if you have chronic pain and stuff like that. And for some people, it does help with depression and anxiety, but like Bella said, for some other people, it might make it worse. So I think it's really a case-by-case thing that you have to figure out for yourself. And now that it's becoming more widespread medically used, I think it's totally worth it bringing up to your doctor if you're considering that, because, there's a lot of good benefits to it, definitely, and a lot of things you have to consider before, trying it out for yourself.
Awesome. Looks like we got another question here. What medications would possibly create problems for our brains? Example, Xanax or mirtazapine. And I can go ahead and answer this. I'm going to say similar to what Bella said. There are countless medications and countless ways that they can cause side effects both in your brain and other parts of your body. And once again, that's definitely something that you would want to bring up with your provider. As Eliza said, we are not experts in everything that we're talking about here today, specifically all medications, I would say. So if you're concerned about anything or concerned about medications that you're taking, I would definitely bring that up with your doctor, ask what you're concerned about, ask what the potential side effects are, and talk to them about what you may be experiencing. Anyone else have anything they might want to add to that?
I'm just going to add that, I think for the ones you mentioned, like Xanax, they do, those are very potent drugs that do have an effect on your brain, tolerance-wise and dependence-wise. So the more you take them, usually, the more your tolerance builds to them, which can lead to issues with addiction in some cases. Obviously not all, but it's important to be really careful with those medications, especially opiates. So yeah, everyone else said, just talking to your doctor is a good thing. You definitely don't want to be taking them willy-nilly. It has to be a very safe, specific routine you have to follow with them.
Awesome. Looks like Carol gave us a little recipe for a healthy apple cider vinegar tonic. So thank you for that. Looks like we only have a few minutes left here. So any other final questions that we might be able to answer? Doesn't look like it. So thank you so much for everyone for tuning in. We hope that you were able to learn a lot about your brain health and what you can do to improve your brain health. And you will be getting this recording and the presentation and a little note sheet.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, ladies. Really appreciate all the wonderful information. Thanks to everyone who has participated today and for all the answering of questions, etc. You can go to our website, comealiveoutside.com, and under the adult passport page, we will put the video up there, but I will also email you that link as well as the handout these ladies have produced. And appreciate all of your information that you have shared in the chat. And just get active outside and have good brain health. Thank you.